Hey guys, and welcome back to Monner's Market. If you are joining us for the first time, I am coming to you from a cabin up in the tri-state of North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. It is the most beautiful place that we were at this weekend for my nephew's wedding. And a friend of mine gifted us this cabin for the weekend. And I mean, she set us up with all kind of extras, and she's just amazing. But I could not pass up showing you this view to start this video because it was nothing less than amazing. It was gorgeous. And I am going to jump right into my video and show you my DIYs that I've made. But I had to give you just a glimpse of the trees changing and this area that we were in and how pretty it was, and I just fell in love with it. We come up here all the time, but normally stay with family, and this time my friend was like, nope, you are staying in my cabin, no questions asked. So we did. We obliged her. We stayed there, and I'm so glad we did. This is my nephew. Just a shout out to Trevor and Kirsten, and I hope you guys are having a great time on your honeymoon. I love you. Now let's get... Okay, so my first set of DIYs is going to be matching Lazy Susans. Well, not necessarily matching color-wise. She wanted one in a white distressed look, and she wanted the other one to be the sort of typical normal brown Lazy Susan like I've done a million times before. But they are for brothers, and they are both Lazy Susans. So the font and everything will be the same. The color is the only thing that's different. This is the same exact wood that you get from Home Depot for $6.27 to do your wood signs with. Now, this is me going in trying to find a font that I really liked for their name. Once I got the font figured out and cut it out, you're going to see me in just a second screw up. And I left it in there just to show you that like nobody's perfect and we all make mistakes. But I just said something about this last week. Like when you cut your vinyl and you're going to use it for a stencil, reverse weed it. It's so easy to do. It's so easy to remember. One would think I do it every time. Every time. Right here. Bam. I weeded it the normal way like I was going to peel it off and use it on something. Then I remembered after I screwed up two of them, yep, this is the right way right here. However, I did cut my vinyl way too close. See how close it is to the edges right there? When I go to paint that stencil on, I'm either going to have to be super duper careful or I'm going to have to be creative and find out a way to make it not bleed. And I'll show you how I did that in a minute. But for now, I took the white Waverly chalk paint and mixed some water in with it to make it a lot thinner because, you know, the chalk paint's super duper thick. And I really wanted the wood grain to show through. I was trying to make like a white stain, if you will, but I didn't have any white stain on hand. And this ended up working really good. You can't really see that good, but you could see the wood shining through this. So I went and painted everything with just one sort of thin coat. It doesn't really look thin again because of the lighting. And just painted. You can see the wood grain kind of coming through there, but you see those knots on the back side of that wood? That's what I ended up using for the front of my picture or my Lazy Susan, because it was just a little more rustic looking like she wanted. And this is me using the early American, no, it's not early American, it's American chestnut. That is me showing you how I mixed the paint with water and just got it super thin. And this is the side I used for the top because it did have those big ugly knots in it and it did make it look more rustic and sort of battered and beat up like she wanted in the end. And this is me just putting on the stain to the other side of the wood. And it's super, super quick. I mean, make sure you cover your hands because that junk is hard to get off. Then you go in once it's dry. Make sure your stain is completely dry before you do this part, or you're going to peel up every bit of your stain that you put down with this transfer tape and the vinyl. So I took my transfer tape and I cut up in strips, you see that, and went around to give myself a little bit more room to work with. And here I'm just taking the Waverly Truffle and going in and doing my S. Now I give that S and the other stencil that I put on 2 coats of paint. You want to make sure that you paint 2 coats of paint. And I didn't show you on the white one, but I do go in before I put the stencil down and add a layer of polyurethane. And that's just to seal that stain in really well and give you a better foundation for your stencil so it's, pretty smooth whenever you put your stencil down. And it helps you to not get bleeds. And so I just go in and make sure that's dry, put my stencil down, make sure it's centered really well. That's me measuring with my scraper because I was too lazy to go outside and get my ruler. But hey, it worked. And then I'm having to cut up my transfer tape again, which I hated because I like to try to salvage that and use it again. So what I did with this, I was scared that it wasn't dark enough and you wouldn't be able to see it that good. So I took some Waverly ink paint and went over the top of that truffle and sort of blended it all in together to make it a darker brown. I wish I would have done that before I painted it the first time, but it worked. I mean, it absolutely was perfect whenever it was done. This is me going back in and doing the second coat, taking off the stencil, and then I go back in once the S is done and give it another coat of polyurethane. And that's for a couple of reasons. That's to get that sealed in really good. And like I said, when you peel that transfer tape and that vinyl up, it always peels up something. So to keep it from peeling the S up, I put that polyurethane down. And if it's going to pull anything up, more than likely it's going to pull that polyurethane up. But believe it or not, it didn't really pull up a whole lot this time. So then you put the rest of your stencil down that you're going to do in a different color. Excuse me. And I went back in with my transfer tape and made sure that I went around that so I had a little bit more work room. And you just go in, and I want to say this was the ivory and not, no, I did use the white the white chalk paint on the darker wood, and I used ivory mixed with truffle on the lighter white wood for the second stencil. And it worked out good. But like I said a minute ago, I do give it 2 coats of paint for each layer. This is me doing the same for the white. Just get it all burnished down. Make sure there's no bubbles. Bam, bam, bam. That transfer tape worked like a dream to make sure I stayed within my lines. And that's me mixing the ivory and the truffle together to make that sort of light creamy brown. And I thought it was just perfect. The color turned out too cute. Give it 2 coats, let it dry, and then when you go to take your transfer tape off, your stencil vinyl, it's like, is it gonna work? And bam, it was perfect. I actually didn't have any bleeds, but I did have to go back in and sort of touch it up a little bit because I was super light-handed because I was so scared I was going to go outside the line. But I mean, it literally took just a second to go in and darken up that couple of spots that I felt like was too light. Once I got that done, I put 2 more coats of polyurethane on top to give it a really, really good seal. And just seal it all in. And I love that little gloss. I always use a gloss polyurethane. Some people like it a matte finish. I happen to like the glossy. But it's just preference, whatever you like. But I go back in, like I said, and sand that down, rough it up a little bit, and then put the polyurethane on. Once you get the polyurethane on, 2 coats, let it dry. I do 2 coats. You can do 1. I mean, it's just totally your preference. Once it's dry, then I go in and put the hardware on. And it takes, the Lazy Susan on the bottom and the 2 handles on the top. Now, my honey come in and helped me with the handles on one of them because I was busy doing God knows what. That's me drying with my heat gun because I don't have any patience to wait for that paint to dry. And that's my big hunka putting those on for me. And then I always use these felt pads on the bottom of the Lazy Susans because I just don't want it to scratch up their table or their counters or whatever they're setting it on top of. And this is me obsessively measuring for the center of this thing, because if you get those Lazy Susans off kilter at all, then it's not going to spin right. And it's all wobbly and wonky and frustrating. So I measure it really good, make sure I've got it centered, screw it down, put my felt pads on, put the handles on, and that's it. I'm done. And that is that simple. There's the darker one, the Sarah family. It's pronounced like Sarah, like my daughter, Sara. Or some people spell it with an H. But that's it, and that's the white one. I wish I would have gotten a lot closer picture where you could see how distressed it looked. But hopefully you can tell what I'm talking about there. But that's it. It was that easy. And they turned out super, super cute. I hope the guys love them whenever they get them. Or at least their wives love them. I don't know that the guys would love them necessarily. But I don't know. My husband loves stuff like that. Now, this is the wreath that my daughter asked for. $119.99. $119.99. $120. My daughter asked me if I could do it. I was like, girl, if somebody else could do it, your mama can do it. So I took that $120 wreath and I made it for $8. I apologize for clearing my throat so much, but my allergies, I've said it before 100 times, are off the chain. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, what I did is I took some ping pong balls that you can get from the Dollar Tree. Come 6 in a pack. There's 3 pictured here, but I actually ended up using 4 packs of it. And I took the outside ring of the big wire wreath form and I cut it off. I found the place where it was welded together and I just bent it a little bit until it popped open so that I could get the ping pong balls. But I took my heat gun and I just poked the holes in the balls. And I'm slowing down here where you can see what I did was right there where the line is. There's a line that goes all the way around it. I just poked a hole on the line and then I spun it to the other side where the line is at. And by doing that, it was perfectly centered every time. And I was able to put them on the wreath form, no problem whatsoever. The hole was the perfect size. It was just a good idea. So, like I said, I did end up doing 4 packs of the ping pong balls. And then I already had some lamb's ear that I had gotten from Walmart on hand. So I took 2 of those and 2 greenery picks that I got from the Dollar Tree forever ago. I don't even know what the name of it is. But it's very similar to the lamb's ear, but just a little different texture. And as you can see, I put them, one on one side, one on the other. And I wired them together with the chenille stems and took some burlap ribbon to try to make a bow. The only thing I did not do in the video, I did do it before I gave it to her, but their bow was super flat, like it wasn't all puffy and fluffy. It was just kind of flat, like somebody ironed it down on the edges. And I did go back in and do that But whenever I got my greenery all together, I wired it to the wreath form. But before I did that, I took some JB Weld, which is kind of like it's a welder for metal, and I put that wreath form back together. Now, you could probably use some E6000 and hot glue and do the same thing, but my husband just happened to have that JB Weld here, and it's kind of like a super glue is all it is. But I took the wreath form, I took the greenery, and you see me going in and just wiring it to that wreath form here. And then once that was done, I just put the bow that I made on, and it was done. And it turned out absolutely perfect. The only difference in the one she showed me and mine was the striped pattern on the ribbon, and mine was a chevron pattern. And I did forget, once I put those, I don't know why I didn't put that in this video, but once I put the ping pong balls on the wreath form, I took it outside and spray painted them this beige color. And I'm so sorry I forgot to put that in the video, but it was just easy. I just spray painted them beige. And that was it. When it was over and done, that was $8 versus $120. So make sure you tell me what you think in the description. Now, this is my little lantern holder that I made for this candle holder that I made a couple of weeks ago. I love that candle. I wrapped some rope around the bottom of it. If you go back a couple of weeks, you'll see where I made that. And in just a few minutes in this, you'll see the rope around the bottom. But I took those 4x4 frames, two of them, one for the top, one for the bottom. And I took four of the 5x7 frames. I left the glass on one of them so that I would have something to put the legs on. And you get those dice in the toy section, 4-pack for $1. And I put it all together and painted it with my white Waverly chalk paint, of course, because that happens to be my favorite. You can do so many things with that paint. And I just went around the outside, the inside. If I had to do it again, I would definitely paint it before I put it together, because I struggled to get down in those crooks and crannies on the inside. But, I made it work. I distressed it in the end anyway, so it didn't have to be perfect. And I just wanted something for that candle holder. Like I said, the candle holder was great all by itself, but I had envisioned this lantern that I could stick it down in and have the glass stick over the top just a little bit. And when I was done, I was kind of surprised that it was actually exactly like I had it pictured. You know, a lot of times you picture something in your head, and once it's together, you're just laughing like, for real? Like, did you really think that was going to work? But I see them all the time, and I just thought, I can make that for just a few dollars instead of buy one for 20 or 30 bucks. And I ended up with $7 in this whole thing. And I took some truffle paint and just sort of distressed it, and that was it. It was that simple. I stuck my candle holder down in there and added one of those lavender picks from the Dollar Tree to the front. Now, that was totally unnecessary, but I love those things. They are so high-end looking, and they are just adorable, in my opinion. And I thought it just kind of looked cute sitting there. But that was it. Or I think there's actually two of those picks in there, and I already had those on hand. But that's it. That's that simple, and it turned out just like I wanted it to. It was perfect for the candle holder, and I'm so glad that I did go back and make it, because I was really, really, really proud of the way it turned out. Make sure you tell me what you think in the comments below. Do you love it like I love it? And you'll be able to see the rope here. There it is. And I know that lavender's kind of hiding that, but I just love that lavender pick. They are so cute. And that's it. It's a little bit different lighting so you can see it a little bit better. But I did. I love the way it turned out. Now, this Christmas tree was a thorn in my behind. I wanted it to be 3 tiers. I stopped at 2 because it was late at night. I was tired. I was over it. And it just, I don't know. It's cute there now that I go back and look at it with a fresh eyes. So what I did is I took my lids to my bowls, my stackable bowls, because they were perfect for making different sizes of the rounds. And I cut out a bunch of this. And this is just cardstock. And then I struggled to figure out how to make the cone for whatever reason. I guess I was so tired. I couldn't figure out how to make the cone. But I finally made it work. And I took this, it's a roll of fabric that you can get at the Dollar Tree. And it's a pretty big roll, actually. And you could make several of these with one roll of that for $1. So I took it and I covered it around the cardstock and tucked it into the bottom. And that was it. It was really a lot more simple than I'm making it sound right now. It was very easy to do. But I was so tired. And I've had several back surgeries. I've had a hip replacement. And that particular night, with all of the rain we've had, like my pain level was pretty high. I probably shouldn't have been doing anything that night but resting and relaxing. But anyway, I thought I was going to use this for a bottom. And I ended up changing my mind on that. And then I thought I was going to use the little squares. Changed my mind on that, so I ended up just grabbing the Jenga blocks and starting over for the base. I took 4 of them, glued them together, made a base, and then I took the little square ones and put on the outside edge to give it something to, like grab hold to stand up, give it a little base right there, and I filled it up with hot glue. And then I just put some greenery around the bottom, and I was tired and forgot to record that part, but I just took 2 picks from the Dollar Tree, cut them apart, and just put it all around the bottom to hide that ugly base. And that was it. And I will probably end up going back in and making more of those little trees. And I do want to do one that's 3-tiered, but it's pretty tall. I mean, that's the, I think it's the 16-inch skewers that you can get, or dowel rod that you can get at the Dollar Tree. It's the taller one. So it's a little bit taller than it looks here. You see the guy in the top right corner? That's little Ronnie. He just turned 16 yesterday on the 25th. And he's the one who named me Monner. And all of my grandkids before me that always called me Nana or Nana B now call me Monner. So I just thought that was the perfect picture to add in here. It was kind of by accident that I added that picture. But he's the one who called me Monner, and that's where Monner's Market came from. So anyway, that's all I have for you this week. Come back next week. We're going to be making some ornaments for your Christmas tree, and I'm excited about that. If you are not subscribed yet and you have watched all of this to here, I would be so honored if you would subscribe to my channel. Like this video, give me a big thumbs up, comment. All of those things really, really, really help support my channel and will get me up to the point where one day, hopefully, I can become monetized. Share. I would love it if you would share it. I'm going to be announcing next week what our next contest will be and what my next giveaway will be. So be sure to come back next week and find out about that. Thank you for coming. Follow me on Facebook at Monner's Market.